Now, Proverbs 1:7 definitely has to be included in my series of favorite Bible verses. Proverbs 1:7, King Solomon quipped that the fear of the Lord was the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Now, I realize that may sound rather harsh, but let me put it this way. Imagine that there were two young men desperate for work, and they were hired to be chauffeurs for a wealthy family. The one young man, for the first week, he showed up on time every single morning. He made sure that the car he was responsible for was spotless, both outside and inside. He even went so far as to make sure he went to bed early every evening so that he'd be wide awake and alert the next day. He made sure that his uniform was crisp and clean. He was polite and courteous with the family. He made sure that they had the smoothest ride possible. The other young man, the other chauffeur, well, that was a completely different story. He showed up late every single morning. He didn't take care of the car, how it was clean. He especially didn't clean up the candy wrappers and crushed beer cans that he had in the front seat. He didn't care what his uniform looked like. In fact, a few mornings he came to work in nothing but ripped jeans and a t-shirt. He swore in front of the children of the wealthy family, and he just simply drove recklessly. Who, at the end of that first week, would still have a job? Who was the wise one, and who was the fool? Hi everyone, I'm Mark Leeming, where the mission of this channel is to provide sound theology in a brief amount of time. So if you're looking for short and concise Christian videos, please do consider subscribing and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Now, in the ancient world, the gods were like the wealthy family who had the power to hire or fire. And so you better respect them, and yes, you better even fear them, because the gods had the power of life and death over you. The gods were up there looking down, granting either success or failure in life based upon how a mortal obeyed the gods' laws and decrees. And so in the ancient world, a wise person was like the first chauffeur, who respected and feared his employer and made sure that he did everything right. Whereas the fool in the ancient world was like the second chauffeur, who lacked the common sense to do even the basic things necessary just to keep his job. Now, in the context of the book of Proverbs, the ancient Israelites, they were only to worship one God, which was considered sheer foolishness, sheer folly to the surrounding nations. Because by only believing in one God, by only serving one God, by only fearing one God, then you supposedly would be offending all of the other deities who would then gang up on you and do some pretty nasty things. But to the ancient Israelites, there was only one God who was powerful enough to do all of the hiring and firing. And so it was their duty to serve him, to obey his laws and decrees that he handed down to them on Mount Sinai via Moses. The tragic irony in all of this, however, was that the one who penned Proverbs 1:7, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction, it was penned by King Solomon, who during the last half of his life completely turned his back on God and worshipped the gods and the deities and the goddesses of the surrounding nations along with their idols. He started off like the first chauffeur and yet ended up like the second. He began as the ancient world's wisest man, and yet in the end became its greatest fool. Clearly, the quest for wisdom is a marathon, not a sprint. Now, you can watch the other 5 videos in this series of my favorite Bible verses by clicking on the end card over there. Thanks so much. I hope to see all of you next Thursday. Bye for now, and be wise.